Although the Amorites were idolaters, whose life was justly forfeited by their great wickedness, God spared them 400 years. The Canaanites were a people who had become extremely corrupt by the time God brought Israel to their doorstep, and he required their total destruction. The Canaanites were a people who had become extremely corrupt by the time God brought Israel to their doorstep, and he required their total destruction, lest they become a corrupting influence in Israel and lead them to practice their abominations, which included idolatry and child sacrifice. I'll discuss Canaanite evil later in this article. Biblically, God had promised to give the land of Canaan to Abraham and his descendants, saying, "To your descendants I have given this land, from the river of Egypt as far as the great river, the river Euphrates." The same promise was made to Isaac and Jacob. Because God owns everything, any land he promises to give to a person is theirs by divine right. This is important to understand from the divine perspective, for any unauthorized occupants would be regarded as illegals, squatting on land that belongs to another. But God would not give the land to Abraham's descendants right away. Rather, the Lord informed Abraham that his descendants would be strangers in a land that is not theirs, where they will be enslaved and oppressed for 400 years. While the loss of innocent life is something that is to be deplored, the situation must be understood with the following background in mind. The nation Israel was chosen to be a witness to the world of the true and living God. The Israelites were to live in the promised land surrounded by the heathen nations, yet they were not to be influenced by the other nations' religions. God instructed his people that they were not to take to themselves any of the elements of the false pagan religions. The promised land in which the Israelites were to settle was populated by the Canaanites who had corrupted and perverted God's truth. They had corrupted themselves to the place where they were beyond saving. Had any been permitted to live, they would have infected Israel with their moral depravity. Before Israel could establish itself in the region as a witness to the one true God, all remnants of the pagan culture had to be destroyed. The failure to totally eliminate all of the pagans in the promised land eventually led to the nation's downfall in the times of the Judges. God ordered the destruction of the Canaanites because of the corrupting influence they would have if their false religious system were allowed to survive. Unfortunately, Israel disobeyed God and did not utterly destroy these pagan peoples. This disobedience eventually led to their own captivity. The people that lived in Canaan were not ignorant of the God of Israel. Many times the impression is given that God ordered the Israelites to swoop in and destroy innocent people. But these people were neither innocent nor ignorant. They had heard about the God of Israel but had rejected him. When the first generation of Israelites had died off, God directed their children to drive out all the inhabitants of the land from before you, and destroy all their figured stones, and destroy all their molten images, and demolish all their high places, and you shall take possession of the land and live in it, for I have given the land to you to possess it. Though Canaan had become extremely corrupt, it would be wrong to think of its residents as brute barbarians who lacked intelligence and were unsophisticated. Actually, they were very advanced technologically and culturally in many ways compared with the neighbors. The inhabitants of Canaan were neither ignorant nor innocent victims of an angry God. They had been committing terrible sin knowing full well of the true and living God. Because they rejected him and his forgiveness, God harshly judged them. If you like my videos, please like and subscribe to my videos.